number words. Mil means either 1,000 or 1,000th. A millennium is 1,000 years, and a million is 1,000 thousands. But a milligram is 1,000th of a gram, a milliliter 1,000th of a liter, and a millimeter 1,000th of a meter. Mille fleurs, having a pattern of small flowers and plants all over. She was painstakingly embroidering a millefleur pattern on a pillow casing. Millefleur came into French from the Latin mille flori, 1,000 flowers, and from French directly into English. You may have seen the famed unicorn tapestries, in which the unicorn is seen frolicking, relaxing, being hunted, and being caught, all against a beautiful millefleur background. Italian has given us the similar word millefiori, though fiori, like fleurs, means flowers. Millefiori actually refers to a type of multicolored ornamental glass. And the borrowed French word millefeuille, feuille meaning leaf, is the name of a dish made with puff pastry, the kind of pastry whose flakes resemble thin dry leaves. Millenarianism, 1. Belief in the 1,000-year era of holiness foretold in the Book of Revelation. 2. Belief in an ideal society to come, especially one brought about by revolution. Millenarianism is one of the future-oriented beliefs common in the New Age movement. Originally, the millennium was not simply any 1,000-year period, but instead the 1,000 years prophesied in the biblical Book of Revelation, when holiness will prevail on earth and Jesus Christ will preside over all. Later, millennium was extended to mean any period, always in the future, marked by universal happiness and human perfection. On several occasions over the centuries, members of Christian sects have become convinced that the biblical millennium was arriving and gathered together to await it. But non-religious millenarians have also believed in a future society marked by human perfection. Even if they regard this future as certain, they've generally been willing to help it along by working for a political, social, or economic revolution. The millennium always seems to be approaching. To date, it hasn't arrived. Millipede, any of a class of many-footed arthropods that have a cylindrical, segmented body with 2 pairs of legs on each segment, and, unlike centipedes, no poison fangs. As they turned over rocks and bricks in their search for the lost bracelet, millipedes of various sizes went scurrying off. The Earth is home to about 10,000 species of millipedes. Though they have no poison fangs, many of them can, when threatened, emit a liquid or gas poisonous to their enemies. If their structure were true to their name, millipedes would have 1,000 legs, but in fact, they have far fewer. Even so, a millipede in motion is a sight to ponder. How can it possibly coordinate all those legs so that it doesn't trip over itself? Like some tiny conga line or bunny hop, it scuttles away to a rhythm only it can hear. Millisecond, 1,000th of a second. A lightning bolt lasts only about 20 milliseconds, though the image may stay in one's eye for much longer. A millisecond isn't long enough for the blink of an eye, but a few milliseconds may determine the winner of a swim race or a 100-yard dash. With the ever-increasing speed of modern technology, even a millisecond has started to seem a little sluggish. Computer operations are now measured in nanoseconds, that is, billionths of a second. Hemi/semi means half. Hemi comes from Greek, semi from Latin. A hemisphere is half a sphere, and a semicircle is half a circle. The French prefix demi dash, which probably developed from Latin as well, also means half, as in demi-tasse, a little after dinner, coffee cup half the size of a regular cup. Semitone, the tone at a half step. The ancient piano in the great music room had been allowed to fall terribly out of tune, with every note at least a semitone flat. A semitone, sometimes called a half tone or a half step, is the distance from a white key to a neighboring black key on the piano keyboard, for example, from G to G sharp or from E to E flat. In an octave, from G to the next G above, for instance, there are 12 semitones. Semitones are the smallest intervals that are used intentionally in almost any of the music you'll normally hear. 2 semitones equal a whole tone, the distance from G up to A or from E down to D, for example. Semicolon, the punctuation mark, used chiefly to separate major sentence elements such as independent clauses. Some young vandal had done a search and replace on Mr. Marsh's computer file, and in place of every semicolon was the mysterious message Hendrix rules. The semicolon was introduced into modern type by an Italian printer around 1566. But since it's actually the same symbol as the ancient Greek question mark, it's older than the colon symbol, which first appears around 1450. Don't mix the two up. A colon introduces something, usually a list, sometimes a statement. A semicolon separates two independent but related clauses. It may also replace the comma to separate items in a complicated list. Hemiplegia, total or partial paralysis of one side of the body that results from disease or injury to the motor centers of the brain. She's starting to regain the use of her right hand, and some of the therapists think her hemiplegia might eventually be reversed. Hemi- unlike semi, almost always appears in scientific or technical words, including medical terms such as this one. A hemiplegic, like a paraplegic, who has lost the use of both legs, has usually suffered brain damage, often from a wound or blood clot. Other conditions that affect one side of the body are hemihypertrophy, excessive growth on one side, hemiatrophy, wasting on one side, and hemiparesis, weakness or partial paralysis.